Menstrual cycle, the 20-day cycle in female. Welcome to our class Neet Biology, and today let us go into the concept of menstrual cycle where you get 100% question for Neet. And coming to the menstrual cycle, it is seen in all the female primates. Okay, and this cycle which is being repeated for every 20 days, 8 days is called as menstrual cycle. And this menstruation is the periodic discharge of blood tissue, okay, which consists of the fluid as well as the dead tissue and mucus is being released out in the form of menstrual flow. And this tissue breaking is nothing but the endometrium which is being ruptured in the uterus. Endometrium along with the unfertilized egg is being released out in the form of menstrual cycle. And the first onset of menstruation in female occurs at the time of puberty, and that is called as menarche. And this menstrual cycle is being ceased when usually the female attains 50 years of age, and that termination of menstrual cycle is called as menopause. So what happens during the menstrual cycle means, as I told you, the uterus endometrium wall is being ruptured. We know the three layers of uterus. They are the endometrium, myometrium and perimetrium. And this endometrium is the thin wall which is being ruptured for every menstrual cycle. Okay, if there is no implantation, that is if there is no fertilization, no implantation, then the unfertilized egg along with the lining of endometrium is discarded out in the form of menstrual cycle. The average cycle duration is being taken as 28 days, and this varies from individual to individual. So usually the egg is being released out from the ovary on the 14th day, and this is called as ovulation. And now going into the steps of menstrual cycle. So this menstrual cycle has the four phases. They are the menstruation phase. Usually this is also called as the bleeding period. And after that the follicular phase where there is construction of follicles around the ova or the egg. From primary follicles they are being developed into secondary, tertiary and Graafian follicle. So this follicular development stage is called as follicular stage. Not only the follicles around the ova, there is also reconstruction of the lost endometrium in the uterus. So all these phases occurs during the follicular phase. And after that, the ovulatory phase. During this phase, the egg is being released out from the ovary. And after that, it is the luteal phase. Once the egg is being released, it will be maintained in the fallopian tube for fertilization. Till that period, the corpus luteum will be producing the progesterone. If there is fertilization, there is continuous production of progesterone. If there is no fertilization, it is being degenerated into corpus albicans. So, the phase after releasing of egg is called as luteal phase. Then all the menstrual cycle events is being explained by a graph, and this graph is very important for NEET exam because majorly the questions will be asked from this area. Now if you see here we have the duration of 28 days of menstrual cycle. Now if you see the events, there is menses or menstruation from 3 to 5 days. After menstruation phase, it enters into the follicular phase. Okay, here this is the menstruation phase. After menstruation, it enters into the follicular phase. Follicular phase is nothing but the construction of follicles around the ovum. Here you can see the developing follicle around the primary oocyte. It is being developed into the secondary oocyte. Secondary oocyte is again developed into tertiary oocyte. Tertiary oocyte is again developed into Graafian follicle. Here we can see the layers of granulosa cells in the secondary follicle, And from the secondary follicle, it leads into the tertiary follicle, where it consists of the fluid-filled antrum cavity, along with it the thecal layers. This tertiary follicle is again matured into Graafian follicle, and from this Graafian follicle at the 14th day there is ovulation. Ovulation is release of ova from the follicle. So here you can see the ova is being released out from the follicle. So this follicle which is being present in the ovary is called as corpus luteum. It is yellow colored body and it is responsible for producing progesterone. And after that, if there is no fertilization, corpus luteum is being degenerated into corpus albicans, a white colored body. So these are the follicle development around the ovum. Not only this, the endometrium is also resynthesized in the uterus. So these are the cyclic events which happens in the menstrual cycle. Now what is the function of hormones in the menstrual cycle? So if you see at the time of menstruation, the follicle stimulating hormone as well as the luteinizing hormone are not synthesized. And later on, when there is ovulation, there is LH surge, maximum increase of luteinizing hormone as well as maximum increasing of follicle stimulating hormone is clearly observed. And at the time of ovulation, the estrogen hormone is also secreted at peaks. And later on, after ovulation, there is again downfall of FSH as well as LH and estrogen hormones. During luteal phase, which hormone is being increased means it is the progesterone hormone. Okay, and this progesterone is being secreted by corpus luteum. Okay, and it waits there for till 21 days for fertilization. If there is no fertilization, again there is dropping in the secretion of progesterone. The levels of progesterone starts decreasing. By this period before menstruation, the level of estrogen again picks up. Okay, before menstruation, again the estrogen levels are increased. So this is the cyclic release of secretion of hormones and construction of follicles around the ovum as well as the endometrial wall, which is being resynthesized. And now, what is the duration of this menstrual phase means? I told you it will be lasting for 3 to 5 days, and usually we see there will be rupturing of this endometrium. So there will be discard of the blood as well as you can see here. The blood along with it the tissue, mucus and unfertilized egg are being released out. If there is no menstruation, then we can suspect there may be fertilization of ova. At the time of pregnancy, there is no menstruation. And the next phase is follicular phase or proliferative phase. In the follicular phase or proliferative phase, this usually happens up to 14 days. Okay, on the 14th day, there is ovulation. So menstruation is again followed by the follicular phase. In the follicular phase, there is reconstruction of endometrium as well as reconstruction of follicles. The gonadotropin hormones of a pituitary gland are being stimulated to produce this FSH as well as LH hormones. So they are being released at peaks. And the estrogen hormone is also released out at the time of ovulation. Okay, and after that, we can may say that at the time of ovulation, the FSH, LH and estrogen levels are being increased. Okay, and after that, there is a secretion of ovum outside and this Graafian follicle is being present in the form of corpus luteum. In the luteal phase, what happens means in the luteal phase is also called as secretory phase. This phase begins after ovulation and here the corpus luteum continuously produces progesterone for 21 days. If there is no fertilization, then that is being ruptured and it is being converted into corpus albicans. Menstrual cycle usually ceases at 50 years of age and that is called as menopause. Cyclic menstruation is the indicator of normal reproductive phase and extends between menarche and menopause. So, this is the concept of menstrual cycle. If you like the video, share and subscribe. This is Pravalika signing off.